Hi everyone and welcome. I'm Diane and my passion is painting and creating nature-inspired watercolors in my studio, which are easy for you to do too. I share all my paintings with you on YouTube, and on our website dianeantone.com you can find free downloadable sketches for all the videos to help you make the most of your painting journey. And if you'd like a little bit more, we also have channel memberships with loads of perks for you to enjoy. So welcome on board, click subscribe and turn on notifications, and let's learn to paint watercolour. Today we're going to do a painting which is a fun thing with absolutely no experience required. So if you're an absolute beginner and you don't know what to paint, try to practice with your paints and brushes and everything. You could give this one a go because really you can't go wrong. I'm going to be using my brand new set at this point in time of Kuretake watercolour pans here. I'm probably going to paint using a number 7 or number 11 round brush from Drawell, ordinary golden, they're called golden nylon, so therefore synthetic brushes from Japan, very inexpensive brushes. I'm using a piece from this block of paper. This is a block, it's glued all the way around, all 4 sides are glued, so it turns the sheets of paper into a block. You cannot separate them, okay? If you can separate them except at one end, then that's called a pad. Etchr made a mistake when they printed this because they wrote on the front watercolor pad, but when you go to buy this online, they describe it as a block. So they realized their mistake at some point in time. At one edge in the corner, you'll find that it's not glued, and it's there that you can slide in a knife, and or one of those bone folders, you know, those plastic things, or a table knife, something that you have that's not too sharp, and then you can slit all the way around to remove the sheet of paper. The reason why this is a great idea if you have these blocks is because it stops the paper from warping and cockling when you're painting on it. Now, for this painting, I'm not going to use the whole space, and I'm not bothered about these spatters of paint that have got on here somehow or other. I want to do it this size, so I'm just going to lightly draw around my initial sketch. This is the painting that I did the other day and demonstrated, and then I realized that the phone had rung during the time I was recording, and so it switched the camera off and I had recorded nothing. So to draw this little piece, good idea when you're doing any landscape is to put the horizon line in first, and you never want to put the horizon unless you're doing a specific type of painting that requires it. Don't put the horizon line in the middle. It tends to make the whole thing look a little bit, well, dull really. So either a third of the way down or a third of the way up. And because this is a 2-dimensional slice landscape with absolutely no perspective deliberately, it is a 2D painting. So we're going to put the horizon here, and we're going to think snake. So that's the horizon. You can alter it later if you want, but that just gives you a starting point. And then we're going to put some more wavy lines across here, and these are going to be our different layers of the landscape. So the idea was this one was going to be like a river or a lake, then you have a strip of grass, then maybe a ploughed field or something like that, and a road, and so on and so forth. And then up here I did have a nice wavy line there, so I don't know whether I'll use that or not, but you'll see as we go on how this works. And then I'm putting on my I'm 5 years old today hat, and I'm going to draw a house the way I expect when I was 5, something like that, trying to be as carefree as possible and not worrying about straight lines or anything else. So we'll do this one here with a nice tall chimney. And absolutely no care about perspective. And then here I'm going to put a tree and another tree. Just put them however you want them. And so that's your focal point there. And if you want to, you can put, like all good children do, the sun in the corner up there. If you want to, you can put another tree growing up here as well. This is all very stylized and happy-go-lucky. Now, this is an adventure for me too. I'm going to be using this Kuretake set, which is so far unexplored. And so I really do need a test sheet here. So I'll just pop a piece of paper here just so that I don't pick up sky blue pink when I want just plain old sky blue. So I think we'll start with this colour for the sky. I'm going to try to keep, shall I put a sun there or not? I think I'll put it on top, so I'll paint the sky first and then maybe I'll put the sun in later. So I'm going to use, whoops, that's strong. I'm going to use a couple of blues as I go across here. And just bring the paint down roughly around your houses. Because the good thing about these paints, according to the manufacturers, these Kuretake, Gansai Tambi pans, are able to be opaque if you use them with minimal water. So we'll bear that in mind, and that because that means that when we come in with our details, we'll be able to go over what we did in the first layer and cover up any mistakes. So I'm just popping that in as a total experiment to see how it works wet in wet from point of view of looking like clouds or something. Okay, so now the first layer I did the first time round in a kind of Naples yellow. So I'm looking for a colour that looks like Naples yellow here. Last time I did them with, what did I do? What did I use? I think I just used a mixture of traditional paints. Kuretake have been around a long time. They've been, I think they were founded at the beginning of last century. So they're not new kids on the block. They know what they're doing and they make ink, you know, Chinese, Japanese, calligraphic ink. So as I go down, I'm sort of changing it up a little bit. So I'm going to go right down to the bottom now and come up to meet the beige. So I'm going to be looking at watery effects down here. I want the sea. This is the water. And we will put some fish on top of here at some point. So use pretty colours. Somebody left a comment on painting that I read this morning, and she said, and I so agree with this, she said, I used to do real art, or I don't know can't remember what word she used, but the implication was that she used to do, you know, proper pictures. I did too. I used to paint large oils and important watercolors of landscapes that were supposed to look like real landscapes. And she said, I realize now I found it draining. And I thought, oh my God, yes. I used to dread coming into the studio to paint. I used to think, I must paint. But what good is that? What you want to feel is, I want to paint. Not, I've got a painting I need to finish. I'm so glad that I've left that behind. And I left it behind because of the channel, because I needed to do things that were fun for you guys. And I found a new style and just a new way of painting. A way of painting where it doesn't matter and the process is the thing that counts. Enjoying the way the paint flows on the paper, not caring if somebody else likes it or doesn't. And just keeping going. Oh, another person said, and this I also agree with, but she didn't quite understand me because I said that I had read somewhere somebody, I think it was the Happy Painter, had said, if you don't like your painting, keep going because it might turn out in the end. And I didn't necessarily mean that you should keep going in that particular session. You are allowed to go to the bathroom. What I meant was that you shouldn't abandon it, or you don't need to abandon it. If it doesn't work out quite right, don't abandon it. Just push it to the limit because you'll learn something. Even if you end up, and it's still you don't like it. It doesn't matter if you like it or not. Nobody cares. The painting doesn't give a damn whether or not you like it. I've been trying to do that all my life, not care whether or not people like me. But paintings, automatically, they don't care whether or not you like them. They just sit there being painted. And so push it to the limit. And then you can still throw it away, but you will have had fun doing that thing. Okay, so now that's the first layer, and those colours are nice and fresh. I've been mixing some of them as I've gone along, just completely at random, and they are not arguing with one another. They're all sitting there looking nice and harmonious. It's not going to be anything like my original, and that's a good thing. So now I'm going to paint the little house. I'm going to, I think, change the colour. I'm not going to do it in the brownish colour that I had it in before. What shall I use? Maybe green. Because there's no green up the top here, so I don't know. Green might not be a good colour for a house. But on the other hand, it might be. So we just roughly paint that in. And then we're going to do the roof in, I'm hoping for a grey. I don't know if there's a grey in this set, but if you want to mix grey, you can't be bothered to search for it, any three colours, a green, a red and a yellow, or a blue, a red and a yellow, if you mix them in certain proportions, that will give you a grey. Because grey is neutral. It's the neutralised colour which you get when you add three colours together. There we are, and now I'm going to do the roof of this one in a nice red. And every time I do this, I think of Canada, and I think of the red tin roofs that they had in Canmore. Don't know why. I don't know why. I don't know why I think of that. I don't know why the roofs are red, but I don't know why I think of that. It's strange, isn't it? Aren't we funny? then the trees are not going to have an awful lot about them, which means tree. I'm just going to fairly opaquely, I'm going to come in with some, using this paint now with much less water, and in a sort of opaque way, because I want to try that out, and just brushing in a random selection of colours. And we'll start again on this one, the yellow perhaps, some red maybe. This is not quite so opaque as that one, but we'll... Yeah, these colours are just like gouache really. If you don't have any gouache, you don't need it. You can buy one of these sets. You never know where your painting is going to go when you start with this principle in mind. So we'll just bring down the trunks by dragging down some water and let that run. Now that band is pretty much dry, so I'm going to try to find a nice dark brown, chestnut brown, that's nice. And I'm going to just point to my brush and just outline up here. Because this is the kind of painting that it is. And then no, I have no idea what that is. And then on this one, we're going to do thick and thin, because that's something you need to practice. So pressing and lifting. And this one too. I don't know what colour that is. That's a nice dark green. Mix that with some brown and get a very solid Windsor green type of colour. And then on the riverbank, again, dark green coming down here to draw the barrier there between the fish, which will be in here, and so on. So then now we want some darker areas. I need a palette to mix on. I'm going to move that for a sec. Put that over here. So just dropping in some neutrals in a kind of design. We're going to use pen work on top of this. Someone said the original version of this, which we did a short of, looked like a hamburger. I'm sure that was a man. I'm sure it wasn't meant to be a compliment. But if that's what it makes him think of, And I can only assume that, like my husband, the way to his heart is via his stomach. Never was a truer word said in my family. And now we're getting very close to the point in time when we are going to need to use a pen, which means it'll have to dry. Okay, time to let it dry because the paper is definitely suffering from over-application of water, I think. So I just quickly dried that off with the hairdryer, and now I'm going to use a Pigma Micron 0.5mm nibbed archival ink, won't run, hopefully, pen, and probably a smaller one as well to start doing some of the pen work on this. And I think I'll start at the top and go around the houses, so to speak. So this paper is fine, but it's very absorbent, and you can only work on it for a certain length of time before you have to stop and let it dry. So that's okay, but it's worth knowing. It starts to bleed a lot, it seems. It does definitely seem to start to bleed. And that doesn't help with the desired result. Okay, so I'm just literally inking in the windows and doors. Like that, and I'll go. This ink is not supposed to run, so if I want to come in afterwards, once it's dry, with another shade of red to change the tonality of that a little bit, then I can hopefully do that without it running. Hope so. Okay, our trees are getting their definite outlines. Right, and then right down the bottom here, we're going to put in some fish, which I'll probably paint gold colour. I'm just doing them very stylized. Like that. And we'll come in with some gold pen in a second. Then up here in the distance, let's put some pebbles, maybe, up here that we can then, after we've done these, and this just looks nice, we can colour them in a little bit if we want. Quite like spirals. Somebody said in one of the comments that they were symbolic, and I'm sure they are. And we can put some dots. And this is, to me anyway, symbolic of our field around us at the moment, because we are experiencing the worst drought that Britannia has ever had. So this is like my house, and these are the trees. I'm worried about some of our trees because some of our tall pines are starting to look a little bit unhappy. So we'll start the next step of this, and I'm just going to emphasize some of the greens here, just putting some lines in on top of some of these lines just to add a little bit. I'm not going to use paint at this point because you could do, but this will dry a little bit quicker. So I just want to get rid of some of those fuzzy lines which have occurred as a result of the paper causing the paint to bleed, and I don't know why, because last time I used this pad it didn't happen like that. So I don't know. You notice that sometimes things happen nowadays that didn't happen the time before when you did it? It's very strange. Okay, so here in the middle on this, the second level down, what I want to do is to draw some outlines of flowers. And what I'm going to do, these are kind of just 3 petaled simple flowers. So I just draw the stem first and then 2 leaves, then the bottom bit of the flower, and then the petals on top like that. You don't have to do them like this, but this is one way of doing it. You might want 5 of those, and then you just bring the petals up. You don't have to put the one in the back if you don't want. So we could have more leaves down the bottom if you want. You can make them bigger if you want. You can do anything you like. But this is to indicate the presence of a flower garden. Let me just go all the way along here like this. And then what I did in the original was I just came back with my gold paint pen. You could do it with paint. I just coloured in the flowers. You could do them in any colour, and if your pen runs out like mine is about to, then you might have to turn. Yes, I knew that was going to happen. It's one of those days again. These days happen frequently. Okay, so never fear. Kuretake is here. I need to find a small brush, like this one. And as I mentioned before, the gold paints, they do take a little while to wake up. But because I used them yesterday and the day before, that little time will be less long than the time it would have taken if I hadn't used them a couple of days ago. For example, when I used them the first time about a week ago, it did take quite a while before I managed to get them to spring into life. And it's probably better, to be honest, to use paint rather than pen, but it doesn't really matter, and one or the other will do. While I'm working on them, I'll probably pop down the bottom of the painting. You can't be quite so accurate, or at least you could be, but you'd have to take forever. So we'll say that what we wanted was a loose look. And we're going to come down here and we'll paint the fish as well. Goldfish. Just go over their eyes, we don't need to worry about that. Put the eyes back in afterwards. If you haven't got the gold pen, though, it makes it a little bit more difficult to do things like lines, gold lines and spirals and things. You can't really do that. You could if you had gold ink, I suppose, which I think I've got somewhere tucked away. I think I do have some gold ink somewhere. Probably wouldn't be quite so, what's the word? Well, it certainly isn't as easy to handle. I mean, if I was going to be putting spirals in with a very small brush, I probably would need a smaller brush than this. I don't think I'm going to be able to do that. So let's just put some dots. And you can draw a fairly fine line. So, you know, what do they say? Needs must where the devil drives. You run out of gold pen and you learn how to control the brush a bit better. And on this part down here, I wanted to have some nice gold circles, different sizes. There we are, and then the idea was there were going to be some green leaves, so I don't know whether I'm going to do them. Shall I do them with? So this is another way of doing flowers. Just make some circles and then give them stems and leaves. And I'm just using a mixture of a dark green. I think that one is Sap Green Deep from Kuretake, mixed with, that is Indian Red, this one I think. Is it? Wait a minute, let me check. I've obediently done my little swatch. That colour is Indian Red, yes. So Indian Red and Sap Green Deep, or even Dean Greep, will give you a nice dark green, sort of semi-opaque, so you can paint nicely over whatever it is that's underneath. There we are, so there's those, and we could continue to embellish those by, we could have a darker gold. We could come into this one here and think of something illuminating to say while I'm trying to make this paint work. There we go. So that should be a darker gold. So we can just put a centre in there like that. There we are. And perhaps we'll give the fish some scales. And then maybe, since we're down here again, perhaps we'll just do a few wavy lines like this to give the indication that this is actually water. And seems a shame to waste, so we'll come in here at the bottom of these flowers with this darker gold, and we'll paint this. I think they're called sepals or sepals, aren't they? The bits that go underneath there on the flower. There we are, and I think we'll come up here, and these stones also. Imagine that we lived on a planet where there was so much gold. I remember having this imaginary idea when I was a kid, so much gold lying around on the streets that nobody needed it, and it was, wouldn't it be beautiful if the world was covered with gold and nobody needed to keep digging it up and turning it into ugly jewellery because there was so much nobody wanted it. But there was all this wonderful, pure, unrusting, beautiful gold, and you could make everything out of gold. It would last forever because it wouldn't rust. Imagine, wouldn't that be a different world? And nobody would go fighting over it. They might fight over something else, but they wouldn't fight over that. Okay, right, so I think probably I need to grab my black pen again for a little while, and I'm going to put some tiles on this roof. Like that. And I think what it's missing probably is a little bit of white. So I'm going to make the window frames white. If you get one of these Sigma white gel pens, remember that it works best when you don't press too hard. On the original, I had a white fence, but then I had a darker line at the top there, and I'm not going to do that. And in fact, I'm not going to use very much of the white at all, actually. I don't think it needs it. I will put the eyes of the fish in and some little smiles. Yeah. I just thought I'm going to put some golden fruit in this tree. Golden apples. And I think, let me see. When I finish this, I must go and order another gold pen because sometimes you just need the gold pen. But I'm glad it ran out because otherwise I wouldn't have ended up doing it like this, and this has been quite good. Okay, so a little bit more brown here. I think what I want to do is some stalks of wheat. Or sweet corn like this. Anything, so this is, because this is kind of like a field. So we have different kinds of, so maybe this is a kind of harvest festival sort of thing. So we'll have these seeds. Of food. That wasn't me, that's my dog. People will be laughing at you, Lottie. So there we are. I think that's probably enough to be going on with. Oh, I forgot the sun. Let's put the sun up here. Oh, yes, and there's one other thing too. I'll just put the sun peeking around the corner, and then I'm going to take a good brush full of gold paint and try to paint around the outside edge. Whoops. Doesn't have to be dead straight. In fact, if anything, it doesn't want to be dead straight. But just try and keep it more or less the same thickness all the way up. And then the last line. If you want it straight, really straight, then probably the best thing to do is use a ruler. But I didn't really want it straight. Can't say I really wanted a smudge down there, but never mind, we'll just take that off with a little bit of extra water. And if your paper is anything half decent, you'll be able to get rid of that. Not terribly impressed with my sun. I think it needs to be a bit bigger. Not terribly impressed with my son either, but anyway, that's another story. Right, well, there we are. That's the end of that. Hope you enjoyed that. Give it a try. It's something different. Test out your paints like I have these Kuretake ones, and I wouldn't try to persuade you not to buy those if you ever wanted to get a set of those. They're not at all bad. So I'll let you go and I'll see you again soon. Bye now, everybody. Bye now.